Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific Admirals Edition. It is December 19th, 1941, and we are playing as the Allies in a play-by-email game against fellow YouTuber XTRG. We're into the turn replay for December 19th, and the early war period is a rough period for the Allies. We've been surprised by XTRG multiple times. He landed on Canton Island and took that island by surprise. He landed on Midway, and while we kind of expected it was coming, it did feel a little bit like a surprise in the sense that he's been advancing way further out than I guess I would have expected to. He hasn't taken a lot of bases in his rear, and he's just been like jumping out and taking bases sort of on the periphery, sort of bases that historically Japan never got to. And that's been a bit of a challenge for us to deal with, his very aggressive play style. But I do think it's going to come back to bite him. At least I hope it's going to come back to bite him. And, I mean, we'll have to see how this all plays out here as we look through the... Oh! What? Nice! What was that? It's a cruiser mine layer. Okay. So, or at least it was... I think it was CM. Yeah. I'm assuming that's a cruiser mine. CM is cruiser mine layer. That might have been our first torpedo hit by any of our subs, by the way. Another surface combat action. Are these two APDs and a DD? Versus an AMC, I'm guessing, or a cargo ship? There's no way there's a cargo ship way out here. But yeah, we've been kind of struggling to deal with some of XTRG's, I think, overly ambitious goals. I know that, you know, Japan has to be really aggressive in the early war in order to have any chance of winning, but I do feel like, what the fuck? His AMC set my destroyer on fire? They're breaking off. One shell hit, that's it. Okay. Hopefully they're okay. But, you know, his aggressive playstyle has been challenging to deal with. Again, the landing on Midway, the landing on Canton. You know, I've had a hunch for like 10 turns now that he might make a play for Fiji. You know, I've been racing reinforcements there, so I've got a couple of brigades. I think one is coming ashore next turn at Fiji in an attempt to reinforce. Mainly, if you remember, when he took Canton Island, I said, shit. He's going to go for Fiji, New Caledonia, Pago Pago, Savi. I was really worried that he was going to make a play there because he had gone so far out to take Canton, and then he went and took Midway, as we suspected. So now the natural sort of progression south from Canton would be toward like Fiji and New Caledonia and Savi and Pago Pago, that island chain that's kind of a group of linear islands that in many cases are close enough to support each other, sort of mutually supporting. And I've been trying to get reinforcements in place. So I've got, I think I said 4. I think it's 3 brigades headed to the island of Fiji. I have an American regiment heading to Pago Pago, an American Marine regiment heading to Savi, or maybe it's vice versa. One's going to Pago Pago, one's going to Savi. They're a little bit further away. The Australians are closer for Fiji. I have some Australians also going to New Caledonia now, or at least loading up to go to New Caledonia. So I'm trying to build up this historical line of strong points, basically putting a barrier to saying, you know, no more advances for XTRG, no more cheap advances for XTRG to the south. And that's kind of what I've been trying, but like even in the case of Midway, I knew it was coming, but there was nothing I could do to stop it. And he hasn't taken the island yet, but I mean, he's getting pretty darn close, and you know, my troops there aren't going to be able to hold off what he's landed there. So this has just been kind of a learning experience for me. I've played a bit of War in the Pacific, but I've never played as the Allies in more than like a handful of turns, and I've never played as the Japanese in a play-by-email game for more than a couple of months. So it is what it is. A lot of submarine action this turn. Looks like the Japanese spotted our surface task force here in the south. And we've just gotten a couple of heavy cruisers here in the strait between Borneo and Sumatra. Luckily, their torpedoes missed, and we're in the process of counterattacking them here. You may notice that I did get the combat animations working, I think, last turn. And, you know, as a result, you get to see those pretty little explosions. Wow! Is that the 3rd torpedo hit we have this turn? I'm really impressed. My submarines are really doing work this turn. That's encouraging to see because the American submarines are pretty crappy at this stage in the war. They at least their torpedoes fail like 70% of the time, or 40, some high percentage that they fail. Anyway, so we've got some recon flying around here. Seagulls and Catalinas. I'm curious what he has on Canton Island. You know, I know he took that. We were talking about that island. I ordered recon over Canton. I haven't seen them fly. Alright, so we've got some Buffalo sweeping over Bangkok. We'll just kind of fast forward here as our squadron gets obliterated by enemy nates. Fortunately, the aircraft they're going up against just aren't very good when it comes to air-to-air combat. Now, this is a different story. These are Zeros and Oscars versus Buffaloes, and then Nels bombing. Looks like he's making a play for Johor Bahru. I think I ordered Max Cap up over Johor Bahru. I'm not sure, but I thought I did. So I guess we'll see here. Let's fast forward through the combat. Yeah, he definitely got through with basically no losses. He's bombing the runway there, so you can see some casualties for the troops there, but really the target he's going after is the runway and the airbase. So he did quite a few hits to the runway, 17 hits, 3 airbase supply, 8 airbase hits. 2 Nels were damaged. Surprisingly, it doesn't look like we lost any aircraft there. A second wave is coming in. Unfortunately, our fighters are already dispersed or whatever, so they're not really able to do much. We've got one brave Buffalo pilot engaging this formation of 24 Japanese Nels. Wow, he destroyed one. And then his plane was damaged. He's being driven away by defensive fire and damaged again and diving for the deck. Alright, well he got one, so they're going to bomb the airbase. You can see one Nel was destroyed, 2 were damaged by that brave pilot, no allied losses, 8 more runway hits, 4 supply hits, and 6 airbase hits. Okay, so our Catalinas did fly over Canton Island. That was really, I think, the only recon. I'd had a few recons over China, but I think the one that I'm really interested in, frankly, is the recon of Canton, just because that is that island really far out in the southeast of the Pacific Ocean, and I'm thinking about, you know, I've spotted his carriers near Midway. I'm trying to remember if this is the replay that I already saw, or if this was last turn. I think I struggle sometimes to get these turns all straight. I believe they bombed they bombed Midway last turn. Didn't they? Or did they bomb it this turn? We'll find out soon enough. Sorry guys, I've seen this replay a couple of times, and I've actually already done my turn, so I'm kind of narrating through some of this, but I already know what's happening. You know, the interesting thing about this game is the Japanese player gets the advantage of when I send XTRG the turn, and he pulls it up, he watches the replay, and he can go right into playing his turn. For the Allies, he sends me the replay often a day or two before I get the regular turn, and I just don't have the patience to sit around and not look at the replay. I want to know what happens in terms of the combat results. So I look at the replay, and then by the time it comes to actually record my turn, because I do my style's a little bit different than his, you know, he shows everything. XTRG shows every single order and click that he does. I just show sort of a summary of my turns and the combat replays. So, you know, I typically spend an hour or two doing my turn, or sometimes more, doing my turn, and then I'll come back and I'll record it and say what I'm doing, and I'll also throw the replay that you're seeing in here on as well. More fighting over Bangkok. I really should change that though. Another recon over Canton. I don't really know how, you know, one of the interesting things about, I think, some of the Gary Grigsby games, like Bombing the Reich, is it tells you specifically, like, how many turns has it been since your last recon? How up-to-date is your recon on that particular base? And I don't feel like this game does that, which is unfortunate. I've looked through the ops reports, and I don't feel like I get, like, when there's a recon mission, unless it's like, oh, we spotted a submarine, then it doesn't really give you a summary of, like, everything that happened. And so, I'm sorry guys, I spoiled it. We detected his carriers. Spoiler alert! His carriers are bombing Midway. This was the big reveal. We know where his fleet carriers are located. They're southwest of Midway. Sorry, I had already seen the replay, so it was kind of like, I knew this happened, but I couldn't remember if it was the 18th or the 19th. Definitely was the 19th. You can see he's bombing my troops there on Midway Island. So, again, Midway hasn't fallen yet, but I'm kind of talking about it in past tense because it's gonna fall. We don't have enough troops on the island. We don't have the ability to reinforce in any real way. You can see here we're sending B-17s north to Kota Baru. As a reminder, this turn I was trying to hit his airbase at Kota Baru pretty hard and maybe shut it down or damage a bunch of aircraft on the ground. Unfortunately, rather than running fighter sweeps over Johor Bahru like he had been doing for several turns, he apparently called most of his fighters back and we ran into very heavy combat air patrols over Kota Baru, which meant that we lost a large number of bombers this turn, including, and I'll spoil it a little bit, including 2 B-17s destroyed, among several others damaged. And that's a pretty big deal because we don't really have much in the way of B-17 replacements. Actually, I don't think we get any B-17D replacements. I think they've moved on to a newer model. Alright, so it looks like we destroyed 2 aircraft on the ground, 4 B-17s damaged, 1 destroyed. 1 more will be destroyed, I believe, when it lands. Midway, repairing ships, and pulse phase. So we're about to go to land combat. Bloody, bloody China is my prediction. Has been the result the last several turns, and you can see he's launching a deliberate attack here at 8843. We don't have very strong forces to resist it. He doesn't have overwhelming forces, but he does have 2 good divisions here, as well as a tank regiment. A couple of tank regiments, actually. One really strong one. If we fast forward here, we'll see the Japanese got 1-to-1 odds, which is always bad for us. The Allies lost 1,000 men, 9 destroyed. He lost 408 men, 4 destroyed. So that's a rough turn there in China, but he didn't take the base, or he didn't drive us back yet. That'll probably happen next turn, I would guess. We just don't have very strong troops there. Meanwhile, he took Alor Star, which is a level 3 airbase north of the Georgetown on the Malay Peninsula. We're trying to bombard his troops on Midway. You can see here things did not go well. We actually took casualties. He didn't take any. We had assault odds of like 1-to-9 or something like that. 24 for us, 113 for him. He has 4,300 troops on the ground. We have 900. Again, we're going to lose Midway. It's just a matter of when he starts attacking there. And then here's our big effort in China at Yichang. Once again, we've resumed the offensive here, and we're attacking a pretty good strength Japanese division in the 34th Division. 2 Chinese divisions here that are, under strength and not as good quality. But this division up here is a really strong division, and we launched a shock attack in an attempt to overwhelm them. I was trying to use my numbers, because you see here we've got a lot of cores. Several of these are kind of junk. They're just, look at these guys. They've got like no assault value. But several of them have pretty strong assault values. 200, 160, 180, 250. Overall, I think we had like 900 roughly 900 assault value with our troops here. And you can see we're attacking the Japanese. You can see we're whittling them down. The 13th RGC has lost like 20 of its assault value. The 11th RGC is only at 5 assault value, and the 34th Infantry Division is down to 131 assault value. So you can see it's at like half of its strength starting the battle. We got 1-to-1 assault odds, which means we reduced the fort to 0, which should give us an even better time of attacking tomorrow. In terms of casualties suffered, the enemy only suffered 10 squads destroyed. We suffered 61, which is unfortunate. We lost a lot more squads than him. In terms of total casualties, he lost 2,100, we lost 2,400, so that was relatively even. That's a pretty good result for the Chinese. They don't have very good troops there. Meanwhile, he's attacking our troops here between Suzhou and whatever this city is down here in the east of China. The 89th Corps surrenders to the Japanese. He had 141-to-1 assault odds. He lost 11 men. We lost 195. All non-combatants. The nice thing about China is we do get any destroyed infantry unit, we get like 30 days later at 1/3 strength. Kodiak and Singapore expand their fortifications. Darwin expands fortifications. And I think that'll do it for the turn. So I'll jump back in and show you guys what I'm going to do here in just a moment. Alright guys, jumping back into our turn here. If we take a look at the results, I was kind of talking over it, but a bad day for us on the air front. We lost quite a few bombers. We lost 7 Dutch, 139 WH-3 bombers. We lost 5 Buffalo 1 fighters, 4 Hudsons, 2 B-17s, 1 PBY Catalina, 1 Blenheim 1. Japan, meanwhile, they lost 6 Nels, but 3 of them were on the ground, so they didn't really lose any crews with those. 2 of those were ops losses, so also might not have lost any crews with those. He did lose 4 Nates, but that's an old obsolete airframe that he's going to be getting rid of soon, so not that great for us. He lost 3 Dinas, 2 Babs, 2 other Babs, and 1 Oscar, and that's it. So 21 aircraft lost for us, 18 for him. Heavier pilot loss for us. We lost 6 KIA, 2 wounded, 5 missing. So it's a pretty heavy loss there. We still don't have any aces. The most any of our pilots have in terms of kills is 4. That is Brownwell, J.L. Brownwell, P-40 pilot, currently I think in Singapore. Yeah, he's a P-40 pilot from a squadron in the Philippines that we relocated to Singapore. You can see here that we've actually relocated quite a few aircraft to Singapore. So if we take a look at our fighter strength right now, we still have the 3 squadrons of Buffaloes that we started the campaign with. Actually, we had 4. There was 1 in northern Malaya that I evacuated to Rangoon. But we have the 3 Buffalo squadrons that originally started out in Singapore. They originally had around 48 aircraft. Right now, they're down to about 38 operational aircraft, with a bunch being repaired. There's also still 34 aircraft in the pool, so there are replacements there. In addition to that, though, we've brought in additional reinforcements. We've brought in 27 H-81A3, which are basically P-40s, but they're flown by the 1st Volunteer Group. They're one of the 3 Flying Tiger squadrons. And there are 13 active aircraft for them. And we've also brought in 4 squadrons of P-40s, 1 of P-40Bs, 3 of P-40Es, to Singapore to help the defense. And that currently consists of a total of 14 ready P-40 Warhawks. So between the damaged and the ready P-40s right now, we've brought to Singapore, what is that, 8, 12, 16... 18. We've brought 18 P-40s. We've brought 27 H-81s. So we've brought a total of 45 additional aircraft of high-quality aircraft, high-quality modern aircraft to buffer the original 48 Buffaloes, which means we have about double the fighter strength in Singapore, as historically was the case, and is aiding us. I mean, he hasn't made a huge play for the air superiority in Singapore yet, which is, you know, good for us. But even in some of these raids, like, we're not getting obliterated in the skies because we've got overall better quality airframes. Now, I am going to kind of leave my fighter aircraft on 100% cap over Johor Bahru, and that's because you can see here he bombed the runway. He did 40 runway damage, 24 service damage. 40 runway damage is the cutoff basically for operating, I believe, at that airfield size, for operating offensive air actions. One more turn like that and he'll shut it down for defensive air action, and it's my only other airfield north of Singapore, or in the southern Malay Peninsula area, that is actually big enough to really help. You know, I'm glad he hasn't gone for Singapore. That's a much bigger airfield at level 6. But even so, you know, it's the only place, if he was to shut down Singapore, the only place I could sort of move and feasibly fly out of easily would be Johor Bahru. Kudantan is theoretically an option, but its airbase was shut down, and I don't have any engineers up here in the north to repair the airfield. So really it comes up to Johor Bahru and Singapore. They're sort of supporting airfields. So if he shuts down Johor Bahru, then all he has to do is target Singapore, and we're going to get knocked out of this conflict. Additionally, we've got some Buffaloes over here. The B339 is a Dutch Buffalo. So those are flying cap over Singapore or Johor Bahru. I can't remember which I sent them up to. I think it's actually Johor Bahru. Yes, so we have them flying there to add a little bit of additional oomph to it. So, you know, what did I say? How many aircraft do we have here? The 99 aircraft, 66 of them being ready. In addition to that, we've got an additional 31 aircraft down here. So that's 130 fighters that can support Singapore at any one time, with about 95 of them being ready. The B-17 squadrons got hit kind of hard, I think. Maybe not. I guess we'll see. The morale is all still over 50, so that's good for us. And we still have 13 B-17s ready for service, those tough old gals. So I think we're actually going to keep them on trying to bomb Kota Bharu. I don't know about the other bombers, but we'll I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to fly the other bombers up here to Kota Bru, but I am going to leave the B-17. So we'll come back to that, though. Let's see. Meanwhile, I've got some aircraft flying out of Rangoon. I keep bombing Chiang Mai, which I don't see any enemy troops around here, but we've started moving some troops into Pegu to form a defensive position here, 228 garrison. We're going to go ahead and build forts here. The main reason is you want to build forts here because this is a rail line linked to China, and you don't want to sort of have to fall back on Rangoon and potentially lose out on the Burma Road. We talked about that last turn, though, so we don't need to reiterate that. If we go over to Yichang, we can see here that our units were shot up. We still have 900 assault value left over, and we're going to go ahead and do one more shock attack. I'm hoping... Oh, no, they rebuilt the forts up. They were down to 0, and they got them back up to 1 already. Damn it. Still, I'm hoping the damage... I mean, that Japanese division, the main force that they have here, is less than half as strong as it was the turn before. So I really think I need to keep the pressure up and not give them time to reform themselves. So I'm going to do one more shock attack and hope that that's all we need to push through here and to win the Battle of Yichang. If we can win the Battle of Yichang, we can push the Japanese back. And Yichang is situated behind a river. So if the enemy does want to advance into central China via this major road up here toward Yichang, they've got to cross a river. And the reason that's important is when you're attacking an enemy across a river, the first turn they enter the hex, they have to shock attack. So even though the terrain here isn't great, my intent once we take Yichang is to build up a fortification, and so then when he crosses, he'll run into murderous fire. So essentially, I'm going to use Yichang to block the northern approaches into Chongqing, because theoretically he could try and march through these mountains, or he could try and move up here and sort of flank our defensive line down here. So Yichang is going to be our northern fortress. Our southern fortress is going to be at Changsha. It's already a level 4 fort, so that's great. And then we're probably going to have to build up a fort at Henang and also at Sagatan. Changsha is in front of the river, but a fort level of 4 is very, very strong, and it's a heavily urban city, so that'll all give us massive defensive benefits if he ever tries to attack us. If he tries to attack either Henyang or Segatan, these are both, again, located behind rivers, so he'd have to shock attack. So we're going to build up the fortifications here as well. The real risk in the south, I think, is further down the rail line in the cities of Quili or in the city of Luchou. These are cities that are astride the rail line that supports Changsha, but are not really located behind a river. The Japanese, it depends on what direction they advance from. If they advance west and then along this roadway, they would be crossing a river. If they advance east and take Konong and Wuchou first, then they could advance at Quilin and on Luchou without crossing any rivers. So these are kind of the vulnerable points on the southern tip. And the key is preventing his advance into the heartland of China, near Chongqing. In the north, there's oil cities up here that we need to be aware of, that we need to defend against, so the Japanese don't overwhelm us there. We're trying to win in northern China at Pao Tao. We've got an additional corps on the way, and I'm hoping to drive these small Japanese units out. We haven't been able to so far with the forces at our display, but once they get to Pao Tao, I'm hoping that we can drive the Japanese out, liberate this base, and then link these guys all up with supply. And that'll hopefully prevent a northern flanking movement on Langkao, which is one of those oil cities. In the south, I kind of feel like our main bastion is Changsha. It only has a level 2 fort, but I'm hoping it can get to level 3 before the Japanese actually attack. Additionally, in order to move into it, they'll have to cross a river, so that should be a good defensive position. And the map makes it look like this is at least a somewhat rougher terrain map, so that should give us some benefits there. Additionally, a slightly less valuable defensive target is Luoyang, north of Changsha. The main reason there is there's no direct road currently adjacent to Japanese forces. The Japanese would first have to take Chizhou, which is definitely in the mountains, and it would be a more challenging ask for the Japanese to do. So I'll probably hang on here another turn or two, then get driven back into Changsha, where I have currently 1,000 garrison troops, and then I've also got, or in terms of assault value, and I've got a few additional reserves on the way. Meanwhile, some reserves from Xi'an are coming south toward Luoyang. So Luoyang and Changsha are the two key positions in the south, Pao Tao in the north, and then I guess he could flank and go for Yan'an, but he doesn't really have a lot of troops around here, so I doubt it. Meanwhile, to assist in the attack in Ichang, I'm going to be ordering the bombers over here at Changsha. We've got quite a few squadrons of tactical bombers to support our ground troops by bombing Ichang. And then I'm also going to use the Flying Tigers based out of Chengta. We've got 19 Flying Tigers. The second squadron is that, or the third? The third squadron of Flying Tigers will fly cover over Ichang from this base, and then the second squadron of Flying Tigers at Nanyang will also provide support over Ichang. My concern is let's make sure the Japanese don't launch massive bombing raids on Ichang, because if they do, that could disrupt our assault. So we're going to have about 35 to 40 P-40s over Ichang in combat air patrol, while we also have our bombers bombing the Japanese. Not many bombers, not very good bombers, but what we have will be bombing the Japanese. So we're going to make one more play at Ichang. If that fails, we'll probably have to call off the assault. And we're going to also kind of, hope that these guys are already ordered to move back to Changsha, but if the Japanese keep attacking here, they may get driven back. Otherwise, maybe they'll hold on one more turn and then be driven back then, or maybe two more turns. I don't know. The Philippines, not much is changing. I've been trying to bring supply into Iba so I can kind of repair some of these P-40E frames. It would be nice to get a few more P-40s out of the Philippines before that all falls apart. We've already stripped all the P-40s out of Clark Field. Also stripped them all out of Malaya. We have some elements of the 3rd Pursuit Group here at Cebu. And then we've got some also, well, these guys are still repairing at Zambingbroa. We've also got some P-40s at Miri, but they're currently repairing. And then we've got some additional P-40s at Swingkang, but I've actually already moved these guys here. So like some of these units, some of these P-40s are showing like, oh, there's aircraft there. But as part of my turn, I've actually already moved some of these aircraft into the positions that they're in, so I can't actually move them again for that reason. But it does mean I'll try and get to them next turn, and we'll go from there. How far can they fly? 26? How far can they get out of here? They can't get to Singapore from here, can they? No. They can get to Swingkang, but they can't get to Singapore. These guys are from the 3rd Pursuit Squadron. What's up here? This is the 3rd Pursuit Squadron. So I'd like them all to kind of link up at one spot and move as one unit, but that probably isn't realistic. We don't have any B-17s in Kagan either that are ready. Meanwhile, I'm moving some oilers to Oosthaven to try and load up on supplies here. We're already trying to strip some supplies out of Palembang. I've ordered Oosthaven to stockpile fuel, which means it's going to suck Palembang fuel down in Oosthaven and hopefully limit how much fuel XTRG gets when the base falls. Additionally, the Prince of Wales is 1 day away from coming off the docks. Then we'll send 6 destroyers and the Prince of Wales south in an attempt to escape. We also have some supply convoys that are trying to sprint their way to the base at Bataan. So we've got 600 supply on the Gemini. We've got 4,000 supply in this cargo task force of AKLs. And then we've got 170 in this fast transport of the Childs, which are all trying to get up to Bataan and unload some additional supply to bolster our troops there and ensure that we hold off in the Philippines as long as possible. Meanwhile, ships are unloading oil at Darwin. That's great. It needs more fuel. We're stringing together a series of convoys down here to Perth, some just to redirect to other locations, and many to carry fuel and whatnot. As we really strip Java dry, we've actually pulled the majority of the fuel out of Java here. It is a large oil-producing facility, but nonetheless, we've actually pulled almost all the fuel out. So that's good. That should help our success in denying XTRG fuel. Palembang's the big one. It was at 180,000 last turn. Now it's 150 because a big chunk of it's being pulled south to Oosthaven. Also, Oosthaven's a smaller port, so some of that fuel will rot or will spoil, and that makes me happy because I would much rather dump oil into the ocean than give it to XTRG. Sorry, environmentalists. All right. Meanwhile, if we swing south, and that's obviously just a comment as far as the game's concerned, I wouldn't actually dump oil into the sea. All right, so as far as moving south to Fiji, I had already mentioned that we were reinforcing the island as part of an overall strategy to reinforce Fiji, to reinforce Savi, to reinforce Pago Pago, and then New Caledonia. The reinforcements for Pago Pago and for Savi are still a little ways away. I think we're looking... Well, here's one of them. There's 2 squadrons of aircraft and a base force are heading to Savi. These guys are out near Palembang. We also have a regiment of infantry that's going to Christmas Island, but I might actually redirect them to the southern force. I'm not sure. I'm reinforcing Palmyra and Christmas Island as well. So those 2 islands, Pago Pago, Savi, Fiji, and Nomaya, again, as part of our overall strategy to kind of, I'm trying to build an iron wall here to stop any further advances of XTRG south, which threaten our supply lines with Australia, because I do intend to supply Australia from the continental United States, which requires open shipping lanes. So we've got that convoy moving to Christmas Island. We've got a convoy over here with supplies. And we've got additional convoys all over here. Many of them are carrying supplies. Some of them are carrying troops, if I can find any of them. So this one is moving to Pago Pago with the 8th Marine Regiment. They're a ways away, a couple weeks. These guys are carrying supply. Someone else is carrying troops somewhere around here. These guys are carrying aircraft to Pearl Harbor. This guy is carrying the 34th Infantry Regiment, a base force, a construction regiment, all to Savi, so one of the islands to the east of Fiji, and then more aircraft to Pearl Harbor. All right, so that one's carrying quite a few reinforcements to the island of Savi itself, right here. But I have some concerns about that because Savi currently has like no defenses. It's like a level 9 New Zealand defense force here, or level 6. Basically just 66 infantry. 2 platoons of infantry essentially are holding this island. This is an important island because it's got a level 3 airfield, it's got a level 2 port, it's reasonably big. I mean, really the base is going to be Fiji. But I haven't reinforced it yet. And it's really close to Pago Pago, which has up to a level 4 airstrip, which means I could theoretically build an airstrip, overstack, and then base B-17s out of here for offensive bombing missions. But the problem is that he's moving southwest with some kind of task force. It's showing 3 ships. It's showing 1 patrol boat. I never really trust what types of ships they tell you are in the task force. The fact that we've spotted 3 ships and they're moving southwest... this is southwest. Savi is southwest. It's part of the Samoa Islands. He could also be moving toward Wallace, but that would be much more directly west. So it feels like he's either going for Pago Pago or he's going for Savi. I don't know which. I don't know if this is a raiding convoy, if this is a landing force, but judging by XTRG's seizure of Canton Island, honestly, I'm kind of worried. So what I'm going to do here to try and safeguard this is I've got a heavy cruiser and a light cruiser. 2 ships that are kind of minimally refueled. I don't have the logistical train set up here to really do much, but I'm going to send these heavy cruisers to the east, and hopefully they're able to interdict these guys or do something. I mean, if it's another armed merchant cruiser, which I suppose is possible, we sank one over here, then great, we'll intercept them. But whatever. So we're going to move these cruisers over here. If it's a heavier task force, I'll lose what I lose. I guess I don't really... I just want to try and make sure that I don't have any more surprises like Canton Island. Speaking of Canton Island, we had 2 recon flights over Canton Island that we saw in that last combat report, or result, as we watched through it. We don't see anything on the island. Now, that doesn't mean there's nothing there. It could just mean the recon didn't see it. But I'm kind of intrigued by that. So I'm actually going to do something. I'm going to take a bit of a risk. We identified last turn where the Japanese carriers are. They're all the way up here near Midway. They're quite a ways away. Now, they're not in the Dutch East Indies. You know, they're not the other side of the Pacific Ocean. You know, they're not incredibly far. Our carriers are here. His carriers are here. But they're at least 2-3 days away at a full sprint, unless we both were sprinting directly at each other, of being able to catch us, especially if we're going the opposite direction. So I've been toying with, like, I want to get my carriers involved. I want to get them involved in, like, a raiding mission. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sail my carriers into this location over here. I've got 2 reasons to do that. One, by sailing by Canton Island, I can determine if he actually has anything on Canton Island. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sail my carriers west. We're going to sail them right by Canton Island. We're going to use recon on the carriers to see if there's any troops here. If there are troops here, then we'll bomb them. It'll be like our initial Marshall Islands raid that the U.S. historically did. If there are not troops here, then I've already ordered it just in case. I'm going to send the 11th United States Navy base force to Canton Island. It's not a huge force. Doesn't have a huge amount of assault value. It's like what is it even? The assault value on this is like puny. It's what, like 34? 36? Something really weak. I do have a regiment in that hex as well. But this is an atoll. It's a small atoll. It has a level 2 airbase and a level 2 port. The level 2 airbase could be useful. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But if it's unoccupied, I see no reason not to take it back, because the last thing I want him to do is turn this into a Tarawa that requires a bloody reconquest. If it is actually empty, I'm going to land on it. I'm going to land a small force and retake the island. And if he, decides to take the island back, whatever. It's a small base force. I can get by without it. But that's my plan. So this is our first counterattack against the Japanese. Not a localized counterattack like in the Dutch East Indies, but the first attempt to avenge Pearl Harbor. We've got our 3 carriers moving in 3 separate task forces to prevent the aircraft stacking penalties that the Allies get if they have more than like 70 aircraft in a task force. And then we're going to go ahead and sail right by Canton. We'll recon and bomb and potentially land troops. I also am positioning my carriers this way because they're going to swing by Canton, and then depending on what happens here, if our cruisers have already dealt with this task force, it won't matter. But if our cruisers haven't dealt with this task force, then the carriers will come in behind these guys and hopefully destroy whatever survives from our cruisers. So if the cruisers don't get these guys, the carriers should, unless these guys are just like a figment of my imagination or submarines or something. But it says they're ships. It says we've spotted 3 ships. Now that is going to reveal my location to XTRG with his carriers up there. So, maybe in 2 turns, if we're over here, and he's still up north, if they're still going at Midway, if Midway hasn't fallen yet, then he will know where I am. But I should have sufficient time to run away. And I'm not going to be moving at flank speed, so I should have sufficient fuel to run away as well. And by run away, I kind of just mean like run south. Additionally, I do have a tanker over this area that I'll keep ready so it can race forward and provide some fuel to the carriers if necessary to assist in their running away. The reason I'm confident in my ability to run away, I've got a shit ton of recon aircraft all across here, between Fiji, between Savi, between Pago Pago. I've blanketed this area in recon, so if he does move his carriers south, I should see it all the way. Even if he moves this way, it's unlikely he's going to move perfectly down the slot and not get detected anywhere along this way before he'd get to my carriers. So I'm pretty confident that even if he detects my carriers, that we'll be relatively safe. And we're going to swing south of Canton. Again, if he has aircraft on board, we might actually get some air battles, and there may be some risk to our carriers, but I can't imagine he has more than a handful of Zeros or a handful of GM4s or GM3s on Canton. It's a small airbase. It can't effectively have more than 100 aircraft on it, and our recon shows nothing. So let's see what that really looks like. Let's see if that's really true. So, long-winded way of saying in the south, we've got some cruisers heading for this task force to figure out what it is. If it's a landing force on Savi, I'm screwed. If it's a heavy task force, I'm screwed. If it's a merchant marine or an AMC, then we might be okay. My gut tells me with the way he went at Canton, the way he went at Midway, I just feel like it's probably a landing force, and he's probably going for Savi, just based off what we know. But I guess we'll find out. He got in awfully close before I detected him. I haven't detected anything else out here yet. So, it certainly seems like a shoestring landing if that's what it's going to be. Meanwhile, that's kind of about it, guys. This is probably going to be a bit of a shorter turn than last time. So, long-winded way of me saying I'm moving my carriers in. I'm potentially doing a small landing on Canton. And some of my reinforcements from the U.S. are arriving and are on the way. We are landing our first brigade of reinforcements to Fiji. It's 2,500 Australian troops are going to begin landing. They haven't actually set foot on Fiji yet. That should bring the garrison's total assault value strength to around 170, hopefully by the end of this turn. You can see here we've got 3 American Field Artillery battalions, which are already they were already built that way. They were already on Fiji before we were ever aware that before the game started, really. There was like a task force here that starts in flight with these artillery. Originally, I think historically they were on their way to the Philippines when war broke out. We have the second task force with a brigade, the 9th Australian Brigade, headed toward Suva as well. Originally, I was going to land them at Nadi, but Nadi's port facilities are 1/3 the size. So if I can dock these guys at Suva, then I would much rather do that. And then, we can always march them on the island. There is a road there on the island that links these bases together. So we could definitely march them to Nadi if that's what we end up wanting to do. Let's see where we're at with the fort building on Fiji. We're at level 1 fort, but level 2 is not very far away. We've got 26 engineers with 5 engineer vehicles. That's quite a few engineer vehicles. In addition to that, we've got another brigade here, the 4th Australian Brigade, probably about 2 turns away. Also going for Suva. So we should have 3 brigades on the island of Suva here before too long. And then our reinforcements for Nomaya are loading up. We've got a battalion of Australian infantry loading up to go to Nomaya. We'll probably add more than that in the next few days. The nice thing is this island is much closer. So if we see an attack materializing, we've got a little bit more time to race the troops there. But we're moving our 1st battalion here to Nomaya to reinforce the 26 assault value French unit here. And yeah, I think that's about it. We've got this fuel tanker chilling. We've got this fuel tanker. This convoy's on the way to Cape Town. I'm loading up some reinforcements down here. Some additional supplies are going to load up and go to Pago Pago. Those bases, Savi and Pago Pago, are undersupplied, so I want to make sure I get them some additional replenishment, and it's coming from New Zealand. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe this is our first attempt to counterattack at Canton or give them a little bit of a surprise. I guess the one thing I need to think about is if I'm really going to sail by Canton, if this is a surface action group, I'm going to give my position away if I bomb Canton. So we'll let our recon aircraft go after Canton one more time, and we'll see. I mean, there's no harm. This turn, they're only going to get down to like Palmyra, if even that far. So, we've got a turn or two to make a decision on how close we want to go into Canton, but I'd rather be in position to do that, and then maybe we just give it a little bit of a wider berth and kind of come in behind these guys, depending on what we learn about them in the next turn or two. I imagine next turn we'll learn what these guys are. Well, maybe not. If it's like a raiding force, we may not. But anyway, so our cruisers are heading east. Our ships are unloading a brigade here at Suva, which navigated through these Japanese submarines without incident. And that's the situation, guys. I think that's all the big updates. I don't really have a lot. We know we sank some ships with our subs. I've been really pleased with how the Battle of Midway has kind of unfolded. You can see here the AK Aratama Maru was sunk by our torpedoes. At least that's according to what we're claiming. We can see here that according to intelligence here, Japan has lost 1 ship at Midway. I'm pretty sure he's lost more than 1 ship at Midway. It's still claiming the Congo was sunk. I know the Haruna was sunk, but I don't think the Congo was sunk. That seems off. It is saying that we sank... no. Darn it. Wait. 5-inch Mark 15... No. When did we sink a light cruiser? Did we sink a light cruiser at the Battle of Mersing? I didn't think we did. I thought we torpedoed a light cruiser a couple turns ago near Mersing, and I had hoped it would sink, but there's no reporting of that yet. But I don't remember sinking the Kartori. Maybe this is another bad fog of war thing. Allies, what have we lost? We've lost several ships. We haven't actually lost any battleships yet, have we? No. The worst we've lost is a heavy cruiser, the Houston. Where's the Repulse, by the way? The Repulse is heading back home, ever so slowly, to Cape Town, along with 3 destroyers, one of them badly damaged, the Express. Flooding is in good shape. It's at 20. It's gone down to its major. And the system's damage is manageable. But I think now I'm just kind of rambling, guys. So the Repulse, I think she's going to get out. Prince of Wales, we may start making a play on that next turn. We'll see. I expect a lot of air battles over Malaya this turn if the weather permits. And hopefully we take Ichang this turn. And then we learn what these guys are down here. We've got cruisers heading east. We'll find out soon enough. I did move some of my scout aircraft to Pago Pago. I've got, 6 aircraft on Savi, although most of them are being repaired, and 6 aircraft on Pago Pago. My concern was if this is a landing force of some kind, I don't want all of them destroyed if he lands and takes the base right away. So we moved one of them. We kind of split these two up between the two airfields. We have enough air support or aviation support. We've got only 5 aircraft on Pago Pago. We've got 12 aviation support. We've got 6 aviation support on Savi, and we've got, we need 6. We've only got 2. So I guess it's good I moved them off Savi anyway because we don't have sufficient aviation support there. All right, guys, that's a quick turnaround for a turn, but there wasn't a lot for me to do. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this turn up, and until next time, guys, thank you for watching. This is the Historical Gamer saying until next time, I'm out.